Here at SHRM, the year 2020 is one none of us will forget. On one historic day in March 2020, SHRM headquarters went dark. But despite a global pandemic, economic uncertainty, strident calls for racial equity, and a historically divisive election, nothing at SHRM stopped or even slowed down. Every SHRM employee and every SHRM family saw life disrupted literally overnight. From conference planning and business travel to summer vacations and graduations, plans were turned upside down and workloads doubled. The SHRM team adjusted quickly, reimagining projects and functions, having difficult conversations about injustice, and forging ahead into the unknown. We invented new ways to keep our remote workforces engaged and new ways to ensure we could return to work safely and confidently. We figured a lot of this out on the fly. Our guiding principles and strong culture led the way. The SHRM culture we've been cultivating so carefully enabled us to reach out to steady each other and stretch to look around the next corner. And through the chaos of this year, SHRM and our staff continue to lift up our members. Day in and day out, wherever you are, we are here. We're here to answer our members' calls and their emails. We're creating new knowledge and research to help you make critical decisions in your daily practices, continuing our work to elevate this profession we all love. I've never been prouder or more grateful for Team SHRM. Each of them are integral to the work we do to bolster your efforts and support your work as volunteer leaders. We will continue to provide everything you need to guide you throughout the year, every year. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are tuning in. And welcome to SHRM's first ever virtual State of the Society address. I hope you enjoyed the quick tour of our 5th floor and meeting some of your team members. In previous years during this meeting, many of you have been able to visit us physically at SHRM headquarters, so we wanted to give you a little tiny taste of that. One thing that hasn't changed this year is that I have the great privilege of presenting the prestigious Michael Arlosi Excellence in Human Resource Research Award. And this year's award goes to a true human resources superstar and as close to an HR household name as there is. And of course, I'm talking about Dr. Dave Ulrich. His work has shaped the HR profession as we know it. He's been called the father of modern HR for his thought leadership in HR outcomes, governance, competencies, and practices. As a leadership expert, he has made a career of introducing fresh new ideas to leading people and organizations, including connecting leadership with customers, measuring leadership effectiveness, and showing how it shapes investor expectations. Dave is the Rensis Likert Professor at the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business and a partner at the consulting firm RBL Group. Dave is a prolific author of 30 books and a popular speaker known to audiences in 90 countries. He's given workshops for over half of the Fortune 200 companies. He's coached the world's top business leaders, and earlier this year was named a distinguished fellow in the National Academy of Human Resources. Dave Ulrich's contributions to shaping HR into a leadership profession cannot be overstated. I am so personally happy to honor him with SHRM's highest research honor, the LOCI Award. Dave, thank you for all you've done to make this great profession what it is today.
Thank you so much for this great award. I'm truly honored and humbled to join the 17 men and women who've been recipients of the Mike LOCI Excellence in Research Award by SHRM. Mike LOCI clearly continues to be a pioneer in our profession and also a close personal colleague. I will forever be grateful to be associated with his name. The previous award winners have been colleagues who've shaped my professional life. To just mention a few, Ed Lawler has been a professional mentor for my whole career. Lee Dyer and John Boudreau have been colleagues Their ideas have shaped and informed my work. Pat Wright is an incredibly valued colleague, an advisor even to our son Michael's PhD. I think Pat's the most thoughtful, value-based researcher in our field. Each represents the best of the combination of theory, research, and practice. Their collective works have become the foundation of HR thought and action. They, along with so many others, make up an incredible global HR community in which we all participate to capture value through talent, leadership, and organization. I'm surrounded in that community by colleagues at the University of Michigan and the RBL Group. Wayne Brockbank, Norm Smallwood, Dick Beatty, Ginger Bitter, Pat Wright, and others. They're my go-to thought leaders, my advisory board and colleagues, as well as personal friends and advisors. I'm also incredibly grateful for lessons learned from a remarkable family, including two great parents who taught me to learn and to serve, my sister who embodies creativity and energy. I'm so grateful for our three children and their spouses who give me confidence in my wife's parenting ability as they then parent our 10 grandchildren. Most of all, I'm so grateful for an incredible spouse of 45 years who's an ongoing source of inspiration, guidance, joy, and rejoicing. Her commitment to truth and service and learning and her gifts of faith and charity have shaped my life. This year, 2020, will likely be long remembered for the crises our world has faced: the COVID pandemic, the racial injustice, social strife, political divisiveness, economic uncertainty, and emotional malaise. I hope that 2020 will also be remembered as a time when HR insights on talent, leadership, and organization have enabled employees to find well-being, organizations to deliver digital and other strategies, customers to receive products and services, investors to have confidence, and communities to thrive through social citizenship. These insights come from what this award represents: an extraordinary blend of theory, research, and practice. Perhaps in these difficult times, HR matters more than ever. We help people and organizations discover opportunity in difficult times. We bring rigor that offers guidance to organizational initiatives. We use our strengths to strengthen others and our power to empower the next generation. And ultimately, we create insights and ideas that will have sustainable impact. Someone listening tonight or somebody in our field will be a future HR leader who will hopefully build on what some of us have done and continue to make a difference for people, organizations, and communities. I love to end many of my remarks and talks with a personal mantra. 5 words: the best is yet ahead. The best is yet ahead, which indicates not only respect and gratitude for the past, but hope and truly enthusiasm for a better future. Thank you again and again to SHRM for this most gracious award.
My friends, this has been a year for the books. Looking back to where we were in January, just 10 months ago, is truly surreal. And I can confidently tell you that the state of our society is agile, resilient, and ready for the future. As you just saw in our 2020 highlight reel, SHRM has been deeply involved in the most critical workforce issues of the day. I'm so proud of how our chapters and councils so quickly rolled out and amplified our resources for navigating COVID-19 and for driving racial injustice and bias out of the workplace through our Together Forward at Work comprehensive research and response platform. You see, even before the pandemic emerged, we were out front on closing the skills gap, working with business leaders and policymakers to remove barriers that leave some of the best available talent on the outside looking in. Our When Work Works Against Us campaign tackled hidden bias, exclusion, ageism, toxic work environments, and other constraints that keep individuals from performing their best at work and even driving them to be more inclusive workplaces. We couldn't afford it then, and even with higher unemployment rates, we can't afford it now. And you just heard from Wendy. The Sherm Foundation has been a major player in these efforts to bring attention to untapped talent like older workers, veterans, people with disabilities, and the formerly incarcerated. I'm really proud of the incredible fundraising and partnerships the foundation team, the Sherm Foundation team, has gone after this year. I also want to tell you about how excited we are about Paragon Labs, Sherm's new innovation lab and venture capital arm. By partnering with startups in the workplace technology space, we will unlock the potential of individuals and organizations to shape the future of work in areas like performance management, learning and development, and the employee experience. I can also report the state of the society is financially sound. Despite all of the disruptions of a global pandemic, SHRM's financial position is exceptionally positive. Our risk management strategies have enabled us to withstand the impact to our business, and we feel quite comfortable that we can seamlessly continue our services to members and stakeholders. Of course, we don't know what 2021 will bring, but we are ready to maximize efficiencies. Although we had to miss our annual conference, I can't believe that, I was looking forward to San Diego, we moved other signature events to an all-virtual format. And I'm so proud that our members have come right along with us, even growing in numbers. In fact, last month's diversity conference attracted a record number of participants. And I got to tell you, I did not see that coming. And to whet your appetites for SHRM 21 in Chicago, we have launched Tune In Tuesdays. It's about monthly virtual events featuring fresh perspectives from workplace experts, curated news you can use, and solutions focused on all things work. One of the best things about social distancing, if I have to be optimistic, and I am, is that I've been able to join many more state council and chapter events this summer and fall. I've traveled to Hawaii, the Bahamas, Alaska, Michigan, Florida, and too many more to mention. And I want to thank all of you who've invited me. I've also been able to bring SHRM's thought leadership on the COVID response, DE&I, second chances, and other really important issues to many more external audiences, nationally and globally, from the EEOC and the National Association of Manufacturers to YouTube influencers and the International Organization of Employers. One thing is clear. CEOs and CHROs across industries are hungry for our guidance in creating safe, inclusive, better workplaces. I'm happy to report that membership and certification are moving full steam ahead despite all of the complications of the pandemic. SHRM membership has proven incredibly resilient during the unavoidable events of this past year. I'm still amazed by it. Despite the fact that we no longer discount, we actually gave us pass-through a dues increase, and we have a dramatic change in unemployment rates, our member numbers have remained steady, with a slight uptick actually in enterprise memberships. SHRM certification and credentials continued to prove their value and popularity this year. For the first time in SHRM certification history, more than 30,000 people were granted eligibility to take either the SHRM-CP or the SHRM-SCP exam. And in another major milestone, we achieved 111,000 total certified professionals, with 72% of them recertifying their SHRM-CP or SHRM-SCP this year. Continuity in testing was a priority for SHRM, and by May, your SHRM had pivoted to live remote proctoring as an option, enabling examinees to test from the security and comfort of their homes. Talk about flexibility and agility. And in June, we introduced a new program allowing certified professionals to earn professional development credits for the work they do to support their organization and to maintain business continuity in response to COVID-19. I'm also especially proud of how we will be able to grow certification among military members, veterans, and military families. We did so by 945%. Unbelievable. We also introduced student pricing for the certification exam to match student membership pricing. And thanks to all of you, I know each of you had your hand in these great numbers. Now, on the policy front, many of you have heard this week and earlier this week from Emily Dickens, our head of governmental affairs, sharing our policy platforms and our plans going forward. Following any election, SHRM's policy team is extremely busy. There are a number of newly elected congressional and state representatives who look more and more like America. Our team, your team, is looking forward to meeting each of them and introducing them to SHRM's expertise and our leadership. Policy, not politics. In the time I have today, I can only give a snapshot of what has been a consequential year, in many ways a very good year for SHRM. We owe our success to all of you. Everywhere, I see our volunteer leaders rising to incredible challenges, even as you try to manage your own personal obstacles. Thank you. Thank you for your continuing commitment to SHRM and our profession, even when it had to have been hard. Together, I believe we have profoundly elevated the profession, and we've demonstrated how HR is the key to better workplaces for a better world in times of prosperity and adversity. Now, I'd like to move from the state of the society to the state of our own lowercase society. This is something all HR professionals should deeply be aware of and should be finding ways to integrate into our day-to-day work. The state of our human society is ailing, and it's been so for some time. There's this malaise. Suicide rates have risen 25% in 20 years. Reports of domestic violence have risen sharply. 1 in 4 people SHRM surveyed feel down and depressed often. Our recent research, The Journey to Equity and Inclusion, found that 20% of U.S. workers feel unvalued at work. And for Black workers, it's 1/3. I didn't say undervalued, I said unvalued. People have literally lost faith in our oldest and most important institutions, and we feel it. People are sad and they're scared. And this is not just because of the Black Swan events of this year. It's not just the disruption of a global pandemic, as terrible as it's been for many. We know there is an end point coming. People are going back to their workplaces, and as many as 40% of them never left them. And our economy has suffered. But we didn't get to the Depression-era rates of unemployment that all of the doomsayers predicted. And it's not just that we have racial strife. What we've seen this year has challenged us to ask more of everyone. Still injustice, violence, civil rights protests, and counter-protests have been in the public consciousness for more than 70 years. It's not just economic uncertainty. Our fortunes rise and fall with regularity in this country. We have been going down this path for a while. In America, we have a real, true problem. We have an empathy deficit. I've been talking about it, a gap in goodwill. For a lot of reasons we can point to political divisions, the isolation made easier by technology, the deterioration of civility. We have given up on understanding the hearts of our fellow humans. We've lost the ability to look through life, through others' eyes, to walk in their shoes. And you've got to ask yourselves, how did we arrive at this empathy gap? Me versus you. We are increasingly tribal as a society, and we're living in a world of separate identities. It's red versus blue, it's men versus women, it's urban versus rural, Black versus white versus brown, immigrant or native, blue collar versus white collar, and then pink collar, millennials versus baby boomers. And even more insidious, underlying this bifurcation are messages like, if you aren't with me, you're against me. I'm right, so that makes you wrong. You're not like me, so I don't like you. Someone like you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt people like you back. This lack of empathy is widespread because we are lacking empathy. It's extremely easy these days. It takes no thought and it takes no sacrifice to reject or invalidate someone else. Much of it can be done quite handily on the anonymous internet, in fact. Look at the media we consume. It has become so fragmented. We can curate exactly the right messages that make us feel good or feel aggrieved, depending upon what entertains us. We don't even have to know what the other side's opinion or experience is. As long as it's different, it's fair game. This empathy deficit shows up every day at work. Much of the resurgence of DE&I programming in the wake of the George Floyd killing was supposed to encourage open conversation and mutual understanding, but often it bypassed empathy. Well-meaning programs quickly devolved into grievance sessions, a way for one group to beat up on another in a so-called safe space, rather than listening and trying to relate to others' experiences. Look, no one ever changed anyone else's mind by convincing them that they were wrong. This is why SHRM's Together Forward at Work platform focuses so much on having difficult conversations with smart guardrails. With boundaries, discussions don't turn into debates. People aren't punished for their opinions and their experiences. HR, as curators of workplace culture, are the ones to set these expectations for these conversations so that they can actually be effective. Now, another reason we have an empathy gap is I want it my way. For years, we've seen fellow Americans face off, nose to nose, shouting at one another over ideology. But deep down, don't we all really want the same thing? To make a decent living, to take care of our families, to enjoy personal freedom, to end this damn virus. But we each want to do it our own way. And although we have the same goals, we aren't unified by them. And it's because we've been conditioned to think only of ourselves. Think about that. It's the opposite of empathy. Society is now all about the individual. We've become a have-it-your-way culture, a Burger King culture. And the work environment has been encouraging this. I've seen the trend. We've conditioned employees to expect an individualized experience. They want tailored health and retirement plans. Who cares about what the old people need? This is what I want, and this is what I need. They want customized training and development and growth pathways. This is a real problem for us, HR. But once upon a time, societies and politics did not celebrate the individual above all. We were once grounded in the notion of a common good and a collective responsibility. That's because we as human beings naturally want to find shared ground. Now, I bring this up a lot when I talk about DE&I and the nature of inclusion. When you meet a stranger, what's the first thing you do at a dinner party? You start looking for things in common. Where did you go to school? Where did you grow up? Do you know my cousin? What fraternity or sorority did you pledge? That search for commonality is what enabled early humans to survive as a species, when isolation meant death and extinction. It was about including people in the tribe, discovering commonalities, as well as unique skills that each of those people could bring to the unit. This is why empathy is not necessarily something we can teach or learn. News alert, it's inherent in human nature. And it's more like something we should exercise every day. Empathy is a muscle. It's a muscle we all have, but we've got to strengthen it, or otherwise it'll atrophy. Now, it won't surprise you to hear me say we must do something to reverse the empathy deficit in the workplace, to close the gap, to work the muscle. And empathy is not a soft skill, it's a business skill. It's what enables people to work cooperatively with others who have very different experiences, preferences, styles, and opinions. In measuring empathy in organizations, researchers focus on the behavior that they found there. And guess what? They know it's on a downward slide. Employees and HR professionals' ratings of their own organizations' empathetic behaviors have fallen steadily since 2018. 91% of CEOs, and rarely do you get that kind of percentage, 91% of CEOs say their own company is empathetic, but only 68% of employees agree. I've chosen the VLBM to talk publicly about the empathy deficit in the workplace for the first time. It's not just because HR needs to be more empathetic. We actually do okay as a profession. In fact, HR outperforms other functional leaders in empathy-related skills like building organizational talent, coaching, developing others, and leading teams. That's not it. It's because you, volunteer leaders have the position and the power to close the gap and build up those atrophied empathy muscles of our organizations and our workplaces. So what can you do? First, you are the eyes, the ears, and the hands of your local employee and business communities. I ask you to consistently make the business case for better, more empathetic workplaces. The business case is really a talent case. I've just seen some research about Generation Z, who are now entering the workplace. We can stop talking about millennials as much. 83% of Generation Z say they would choose an employer with a strong culture of empathy over an employer offering a slightly higher salary. That's compared to 75% of other employees. 79% of Generation Z would choose an empathetic employer even if it meant changing their role, their industry, or their career path. 83% would consider leaving their current organization for a similar role at a more empathetic organization. That's all we need. Our future talent having another reason to leave because of workplace culture. We must do something about it. Secondly, make this connection between empathy and performance in your organizations. The Center for Creative Leadership's research found that empathy in the workplace is positively related to job performance. HR leaders can identify the intersections where empathy and performance come together. And what we know is that standing at those intersections are your people managers. So give their empathy muscles a workout as well. When asked who has the most impact on building a culture of empathy, employees' top response was their manager. Not their CEO, not their coworkers, or their HR leaders. It was their people manager. That's why empathy is such a large part of SHRM's new People Manager qualification, our PMQ. These days, with so many people working away from each other remotely, your people managers are sort of the first line of defense when people are struggling with work or stress. And frankly, the people managers are experiencing that same work and stress at the same time. This is all new for them. Think about pre-COVID. How involved did we get with how our people were managing their personal lives at home? I suggest you not much. There was their home life and there was their work life. We had responses for workplace harassment, but not for domestic abuse, for administering family and medical leave, but not for supporting people juggling work, childcare, elder care, and homeschooling, and potentially even without they have a worker, a partner who's out of work. When a parent has to come to work and leave their children home to learn on their own, that parent is not bringing all of themselves to the job. I know this, I'm a single father. And those children may not be getting the best preparation for their future. And guess what? They are our future. Now, this is a manager's concern. It is their concern, which makes it very much an HR concern. The lines between work and home aren't blurred. They're non-existent. An empathetic manager's actions can be as simple as watching for signs of overwork and stress in others, showing sincere interest in the needs, hopes, and dreams of their reports, being willing to break the office wall and offer to help with personal problems, showing compassion for personal loss, and cheering for personal achievement. Now, beyond managers, there's a whole reservoir of empathetic people all around your office. The question is, do you know who they are? Earlier this year, SHRM had all of our employees take the Clifton Strengths Assessment. It was a great exercise to learn about the gifts and passions of each of our team members. One member of our HR team had the idea to connect together the 20 or so employees who scored empathy as one of their top 3 strengths. And this group, they meet every Monday on Zoom to talk about manifesting empathy and understanding into our day-to-day work. It's amazing. Finally, volunteer leaders, you can steer your councils and your chapters to provide programs and resources that promote empathy and belonging in your local business community. Empathy is at the heart of so many of the resources and platforms we've been developing for members and for the entire HR profession. You saw many of them featured in the opening video, and I urge you to share these resources and ideas everywhere, not just with other HR professionals. What is empathy but getting talent back to work and ensuring that people who have made mistakes get a second chance? And making sure that older workers, people with disabilities, veterans, and others who've been locked out of the workplace have equitable opportunities to succeed in a job. What is empathy but guiding difficult conversations about racial justice and equity at work? Conversations that will change lives. What is empathy but making sure that inclusive workplace cultures extend to those who have different political opinions and perspectives? Empathy requires us to put the we before the me. And now more than ever, we need people to see for each other, to think for each other, to wear the metaphorical face covering, even if we are young and healthy, to protect those who aren't. The workplace is the best place to build our empathy muscle, because it's where the working population spends the majority of their waking time. We have an opportunity to make an empathy impact that will be felt in homes and communities around the world. And now is the time. We have new leadership in all branches of Washington and in our states, a vaccine on the way, a new year ahead, and a lot of ground to make up after the great pause. Thank you, volunteer leaders, for giving me the opportunity to talk about this issue that is so important. I hope you will take it out into the world with you. You are the pulse of the profession, the heart of SHRM, and the empathy coaches who can build the muscles that ensure our workplaces are restored and ready for anything. Thank you, and God bless. So now we have some answers, some questions that hopefully have some answers that you volunteer leaders have sent in advance, and I got to get ready. I usually don't do Q&As because these are tough. I'm certain they are, and I'm gonna just go away. So the first question, Sarah Calfee in San Diego, California. Some people have expressed that they feel racism is the most important social issue facing the U.S. at this time, and thus should be the main focus of SHRM and the chapter's efforts for creating equity in the workplace. With the development of the Blue Ribbon Commission, it appears that SHRM is taking this stance as well. What can I say to those who are concerned that all other equity issues are being minimized and or dismissed at this time as a result? Gender issues, LGBTQIA issues, disability, veteran, etc. Sarah, thank you for that question. And it's interesting, I go to great lengths to reinforce that while, yes, the country is having a reckoning on race and having real discussions and an in-depth thinking on the subject of race, that's not to the exclusion of all of the various dimensions of diversity, many that you've described, and disability status. Ageism is alive and well in the workplace. Gender disparity issues when it comes to pay and promotional opportunities, all of that remains alive and well. When you think just in 2018, we, as your society, your professional society for human resource management, were very focused on specifically the Me Too era. And it wasn't that we were suggesting that other forms of workplace harassment and hostility didn't matter or we were dismissing it. We were just saying that was the hot issue. We do our best to maintain our focus on all of it, although from time to time we highlight what is contemporary, what's at the top of the news. And so yes, right now we're focusing on racial equity. I ultimately think that you will benefit, we collectively will benefit from some of what we learned from the Blue Ribbon Commission on racial equity. Who knows? There may subsequently be a Blue Ribbon Commission on disability status, etc. So we're going to learn. This is not SHRM's dismissal or maniacal focus to the exclusion of everything else on race, just because that's what we're focused on right now. I assure you that discrimination, harassment, disparity in the workplace of any type is something we don't find acceptable and will do our best to respond to. So I would encourage you to go to our website. In addition to the work that you'll find it Together Forward at Work, the specific initiative on racial equity, there's tons of information. Our editorial team does a great job constantly reminding us that we need to ensure that every employee comes to a workplace free of harassment and discrimination, and that they all get to experience this American dream. Secondly, but thank you for that question. The second question is, how can we best partner with SHRM in the year ahead? Well, I got to tell you, if there's never before been a year where we can make the case that HR matters, it's 2021. So what you can do with all of your might is to go out and talk to members in the business community, not just SHRM people or other HR professionals, but to everyone, and have a collective, focused discussion about the importance of people, and not a feel-good, people are our most important asset sort of discussion. I'm talking about real discussions about how we can bring bring the best out of people and get the most out of them and help them maximize their human potential. 2021 is going to be a tough year for all of us who think 2020 was rough, because we will stop at some point issuing stimulus pay. We do know that the economy is going to be slow to come back. It's coming back, but it's going to be slow and it's going to be a bumpy ride. This is the opportunity to really make the case to everyone, not just HR people, that HR matters. We've got to elevate our game, HR practitioners, because the expectation of the broader community is that we're going to be very responsive to human resources, the people and the profession in 2021 in ways that we've never had to do before. We spent 2020 reacting to George Floyd, reacting to COVID, reacting to a divided electorate. Next year, hopefully, we're going to move past much of that, and that's going to require that we have a steady hand and that we lead using that empathy that I've referred to so much, walking in the shoes, or at least attempting to, being sensitive to walking in the shoes of one of your colleagues. That's what you can do for SHRM, is everywhere that someone turns, you should say, SHRM has a response to that. Another question. As the Diversity Committee Chair for 2020, and the VP of Programs for 2021, I've heard complaints that SHRM and local chapters are not taking a strong and swift enough stance regarding how employers should handle Black Lives Matter. I have my own perspective on it, but I would like to know what the formal response to this should be, as I support the Blue Ribbon Commission and SHRM in general. It's a great question, and I'm so glad many of you, and I want you to hear directly from me. I've spoken to you in many groups. Initially, when I started hearing the criticism of SHRM's position on racial equity, I was bothered. Although I've only been in this role a little over 2 years, almost 3 years. I can't believe it next month. SHRM has a long history of addressing these issues of racial injustice. We focused on diversity before there was a diversity and inclusion, and way before there was a diversity, equity, and conclusion. SHRM has been really very, very focused on this work. If you go back to our website and look at our editorial work, we've been talking about this for 20 or 30 years. Yes, the George Floyd killing was a monumental sort of moment in history. But by the same token, to suggest that SHRM did not respond until June of 2020, ignores all of our work and all of our efforts. It's unfair. And I would encourage your people to go in, look at the work that we've done for 20 or 30 years. Look at the work that we're continuing to do, and how, yes, we got even better at it, but that was because the situation came to us as a crisis. We didn't know, we've always talked, for example, about OSHA and a safe workplace, by example, and then COVID happened and we had to up our game. Well, we were always talking about DE&I issues and doing really groundbreaking research at SHRM and editorial. And then George Floyd's incident happened and we had to up our game. But again, for anyone to suggest that SHRM was not a leader in the LGBTQ work, someone wrote me a note and said, I can't believe for a second that SHRM didn't take a stronger position on the Supreme Court after the Supreme Court handed down its decision about Title VII and its application, or get that word out, applicability. I'm going to say that word, applicability to Title VII. Well, the reality is all you've got to do is go and say, we were one of the first organizations, in fact, I think the first, to support legislation at the courts and within Congress, the Equality Act. So this suggestion that SHRM is late to this game is simply false. I reject it. I tell you to go back and look at the facts, and then you'll know what we've stood for. Okay, one other quick question. What do you see as SHRM's biggest challenge this next year? We were built, SHRM was built to really focus on the profession. And now and something we prayed for is we say HR affects everything. It's not just the HR profession, but it touches everyone's life. And guess what? In 2021, we're being called on the carpet for it. People are saying, yes, it's at home, it's at work, it's my job, it's my health, it's my marriage, it's my children, it's my elderly parents. Everything is connected to and a part of work. And so SHRM, being the voice of all things work, the worker, the workplace, work itself, how do you define it? We have so much on our plate to do. What we've got to do is figure out how to focus. Everyone, I'm heading out of here right now, going to give a talk at the Department of Education, for example, and we will do that under every administration. From today forward, we have so much ground to cover and frankly, limited resources, which is the last point that I want to get to. There was a question here where there was a question about us raising the prices of our membership. We spend a lot of money providing you the resources that you need to do your job, equipping you with it. And believe it or not, we actually lose money on membership. You get a lot more than you pay in for $219 a year. We understand many of you are struggling. Get it. And we understand that the economy is slowing down, but now more than ever, you've got to invest in you and yourself as a professional. That's what I do. I'm a member of the Bar Association, as you know, as a trained lawyer. Notwithstanding what's happening in the market, I have to make sure that I invest in my continued learning and development. SHRM is doing it. It costs money. And so we will have to use some resources. We want you to participate with us. We're not passing on the full cost, but you should share in it because ultimately it benefits you, it benefits your organization, your clients, and ultimately the world. I want to thank all of you for giving me this opportunity to lead an amazing organization, the Society for Human Resource Management. We're going into our 73rd year, I think it is, created in 1948 to do the work that we do. My job and the job of our board of directors and the senior management team and all of the nearly 400 employees across the globe in India and MENA and in the US, our job is to make sure that your SHRM is here for another 73 years. God bless you all. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to lead the Society for Human Resource Management.